Okay, aloha and good morning, everybody. Happy 420, happy holidays. It's a pretty cool way to spend our day here. My name is Kaliko, Castille. I'm the president of the Minority Cannabis Business Association. We were founded in 2015 to advocate on behalf of Black and brown communities who have been disproportionately impacted by prohibition. And since 2015, we've been one of the leading voices trying to make sure that we have equitable policies. The senators are working their way over here, so we're just going to kind of start by talking a little bit about sort of both of the bills that the senators are working on, both the Safe Banking Act and access to the Small Business Administration programs as well. I think one of the big sort of context-setting things for us as we're coming together talking about cannabis policy is really we're trying to make sure that the cannabis industry is treated like any other small business in America, right? It's not that we're trying to get special treatment for the cannabis industry. What we're trying to get is equal treatment in comparison to all of the other small businesses. So whether that's the Safe Banking Act and making sure that people have access to depository institutions, or whether that's Senator Rosen's bill trying to get access to small business administration programs, one of the biggest issues for the cannabis industry, minority entrepreneurs and otherwise, is getting access to banking, but also getting access to capital. And so the Small Business Administration has a history of working with small businesses and making sure they have access to programs to help them fund their businesses, have equipment, hire folks. So really appreciate the work that Senator Rosen has been doing on that bill. And this is something that MCBA has been working on for several years. So we're glad to see that this is something that's continuing to move forward. So we, on the safe banking side, have been supportive of safe banking since its initial introduction, but have been working with others in this room to try to continue to improve it so that we ultimately can have the best bill possible. For cannabis operators, if you're trying to start a business and you can't go and start a basic bank account, it's going to be really hard for you to be able to pay your employees, pay your vendors. So it's something that throws an unnecessary barrier in front of small business operators when they're just trying to run their small business. And it's frankly something that we don't do for any other small business. So once again, really appreciate the work that Senator Merkley and Senator Rosen are doing on these bills. We hope that everybody will continue to advocate on behalf of Black and brown and minority entrepreneurs and getting access to not only depository institutions, but ultimately access to capital as well, and hopefully through the SBA programs. I know today on the panel we have Senator Merkley and Senator Rosen, but we also have a moderator, Gaynor from the Grio, who's going to be joining us today and helping to moderate the panel. And I know he's been covering a lot of stuff on this issue and has been doing a really great job. Justin, cool. It looks like we still got a couple more minutes until they're here, so I'm going to keep sort of running a little bit. One thing I would say, another thing when it comes to small business, banking on small businesses, is that so much of the economic growth in our country is from small businesses, right? And the cannabis industry is no different than that. I think a lot of the headlines you'll see about sort of the largest players, the people who have the largest capital, but really most of the industry are people who are just eking it out, trying to get money from friends and family in order to start up their businesses, and doing everything they can to put it all on the line to be able to start these businesses. And once again, when we're not doing these basic things, whether it's access to capital, whether it's 280E, which is another big thing for small businesses, we have unfair tax burdens on cannabis businesses. There's just so much work to do. So I think it's a really big deal that we are here at the Congressional Visitor Center today talking about this issue on 420, a day that most people think we're just sitting around smoking weed and getting high, but we're here doing the work of actually making sure that we are creating an industry, and not just indie industry, but one that is equitable and truly helping to repair the damage that was done by the war on drugs and cannabis prohibition. So I think we're getting close to having the senators here. I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Justin Streckle, who's been organizing this great event, and really appreciate you guys all being here. Thank you.
Hello. So instead of having two senators walk up on the stage right now, you have me, but I assure you they are on their way over. This happens sometimes when we're at the Capitol. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Justin Streckle, and I've been organizing this space for a very long time. And to every point that Kaliko just made about the hard work, I want to have us take a moment to acknowledge that no one gets anything accomplished in this building done alone. So since we got 2 minutes while the senators are walking over, I want everyone to stand up, stretch, and introduce yourself to those who are next to you and ask what fuels their righteous indignation. Why are they here fighting or thinking about or engaging with marijuana policy reform? And I mean only 1 minute because one of the senators just arrived and we're going to get started. So 1 minute. All right, with that, are you ready to get back into the conversation? Yes? Woo! All right, give me another woo. Are you guys ready to talk about how we're going to reform federal marijuana policies? A little bit more. There's a lot of people in here. I know there's a lot of high energy activists. Are you guys ready to talk about how we're going to reform federal marijuana policies? All right, with that, it's my great pleasure to bring up the senator from Oregon, Jeff Merkley. And the senator from the great state of Nevada, Jacky Rosen.
Can you hear me now? My mic is on. Hello, everyone. Sorry for getting started a little bit late. It's always a busy day on Capitol Hill, so we understand. There are some votes on the floor. So let's just dive into it. I wanted to start with you both making general remarks, but since we have less time, I would love for you to talk about your respective bills, because so much often when we talk about cannabis reform, we focus on criminalization, we focus on the path to legalization. But your bills focus on how to support entrepreneurs and getting access to banking services and loans. So why do you believe that your bill is the next big step in the larger cannabis reform movement?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Thank you all for being here. We did have a few votes, so sorry we're a little bit late. That's how things go here on Capitol Hill. But in 2016, Nevada overwhelmingly voted to legalize and regulate cannabis. Yeah, thank you. That's right. That's a Nevada resident. Thank you very much. And so that's so important to our economy, and I don't have to tell any of you, billions of dollars in our economy for cannabis businesses, cannabis technology, and only room to grow, no pun intended, to grow and thrive. We even have a cannabis chamber of commerce in Nevada. And so it's extremely important. So these bills that allow anyone who's operating legally within their state, and 2/3 of states now have cannabis, whether it's medicinal or recreational, in some form or fashion, they're operating legally within their state. They deserve to have the same banking rules and responsibilities as every other business. And my bill to allow SBA access for small businesses, again, we have a nice cannabis chamber. Anyone who's operating legally, we want our small businesses, 99% of businesses in Nevada are small business. We want everyone to be able to take advantage of those programs who's operating legally in the state. It matters. It's about equity. It's about inclusion. We have so many chambers in Nevada. I work with all of them. We have a great SBA administrator there, a regional director, and we want everyone to be able to take advantage and grow into this new wonderful business. So that's why I'm on the same bills, or why I've introduced a bill on the same bills with Senator Merkley. So we'll be brief. I know our time is shorter, so go ahead, Senator.
Oh, greetings, everybody. And I'm delighted to be here with Senator Rosen, and she's such a champion for small business in general and the cannabis small business in particular, and it's a great bill. Back in 2014, Oregon had on its initiative the recreational cannabis. And a reporter said, what do you think about this proposed initiative? And I said, well, advocates on one side or the other could argue this or argue that, but on balance, I'm for it. And I didn't realize that the headlines the next day would be first senator in U.S. history to support recreational cannabis. So there it is, yay! And the following year in Appropriations Committee, I proposed, we already had medicinal marijuana, we already had the challenge of companies not able to operate within the normal banking systems. The next year in Appropriations, I put forward an amendment and said, hey, no money can be spent to enforce laws that prevent our cannabis businesses from accessing the banking world. And Senator Daines joined me, and we passed that through committee. My staff, by the way, was pretty terrified. It was, as far as we know, it was the first cannabis legislation to be proposed in the U.S. Senate. And And my staff was like, that's dangerous ground. I'm like, it's absurd, the situation we're in. And it was amazing that we got it passed. And we passed it the next year and kept getting stripped out in conference. And since then, so-called new policy pieces cannot be inserted in the appropriation bills. So it's like, well, let's craft a regular policy bill. And that's the genesis of safe banking, and now Safe Banking Plus. If you want an open invitation to crime, require everything to be done in cash. It's been robbery after robbery after robbery. It's been assault on people who work in our cannabis business. It's been an absurd difficulty for all the suppliers, as you all know. Suddenly somebody provides fertilizer, it gets delisted by their bank, or payroll check services, or so on and so forth. And we still have, there's been some accommodation in the banking world, but not much. We're still 70% is cash. I had the experience in Oregon of accompanying one of our entrepreneurs with his backpack to pay his quarterly taxes. In his backpack was $70,000. Earl Blumenauer, who may have spoke to you all earlier, and a huge champion on cannabis issues from the state of Oregon, we met with him. He poured out his $70,000 on a table. That's a big pile of cash. We go down to the state capitol to deposit his quarterly deposit, and we have to get through 3 rings of police, starting a couple blocks out from where he had to drop off the money, because millions of dollars was flowing in from every corner of the state. And it was just another example of the absurdity of the whole situation. So it's way past time. I'm very excited about where we are now. We are a nuance away from introducing the bill. Senator Brown has put out publicly this week that he intends to hold a hearing, so a big cheer for Senator Brown. And so we've got to, Senator Daines and I have to get this bill introduced, and we need to get it to his committee and keep pushing forward.
I want to switch topics to talk about racial equity, because I think it's important before we talk about where we are and how we move forward. We have to acknowledge the past and the impacts of prohibition and the war on drugs, and that disproportionately impacted Black and brown communities. When we talk about business, less than 2% are Black-owned in the cannabis industry. Maybe around 6% are only Hispanic-owned. Can you talk about the importance of shaping policy through a racial equity lens, and to what degree has that informed the way that you drafted your individual bills?
Sure, you bet. If we turn back in time, white Americans, Black Americans use marijuana at the same rate, but Black Americans were arrested and incarcerated 4 times. I mean, it's a straight-out prejudicial record, and one we need to do everything we can to correct. In the Safe Banking Bill that we will send to committee will be the basically incorporation of community development, financial institutions, CDFIs, MDIs, minority institutions, so we want to make sure that gate is wide open to serve our inner city or our minority communities and our minority businesses in this world. Meanwhile, a big deal is expungement. And we can't do expungement on the bill as it heads to banking. That would have to happen after it gets to the floor, but it has to be a top priority. The grants for expungement, the HOPE amendment, is essential, and I'm going to be counting on all of you when we get to the floor to lobby the hell out of the Senate to make sure we get the HOPE portion done when we get to the floor.
Yeah, I can applaud that, and I want to associate myself with the comments since we're short on time that Senator Merkley said, and I want to add that I sit on the the Committee for Small Business and Entrepreneurship, and so we understand with our Minority Business Development Agency, with all the other kinds of things that we have within our SBA programs that allow for small business to grow and thrive. Again, I keep saying that. I don't mean the pun. We're talking in Nevada here, but there's tons of programs. And all of our chambers know that. We put those out there so that people do have the chance for equity, for inclusion, for the unbanked, the underbanked, to have opportunities, access to capital and training. And so in my bill for the SBA, the Fair Access to Cannabis bill, it will really open these gates for small business owners to be able to compete with the large corporations who are also in there. And we have to have that happen. And the infrastructure's already there. So we just want to plug into it.
A quick follow-up for you, Senator Rosen. Can you talk to how the COVID-19 pandemic really illuminated a lot of these disparities as it relates to businesses, especially cannabis business owners?
Well, that's a great question because I can tell you that COVID-19 opened our eyes to the inequity in a lot of things. We can talk about food insecurity. We can talk about housing. We can talk about all of those things, education, telemedicine, telehealth. But for our businesses, our small businesses, again, 99% of businesses in Nevada, small businesses, I can tell you, not just with our cannabis chamber, but with all of our chambers, we held roundtable after roundtable, helping to get that PPP money, the EIDL loans, all of the things that we had to do, making sure that we had the proper guardrails so that people who are unbanked, underbanked, and minority and underserved communities, rural communities, had the opportunity to take advantage of the programs that we put in forth for their businesses, either to stay afloat or for other issues that they may have had. And so, again, this just shows us that we have to do everything we can to be sure that we're equitable between large and small businesses, number one, and then amongst different communities within that. And everyone should have a piece of the pie to be able to pursue their dreams of being a business owner.
While we're talking about addressing historic wrongs, I just wanted to mention President Biden's pardons. He's pardoning all on the federal crimes. He can't do it on state level crimes, but he also has a commission looking into what else can be done. And so I just want to throw in a big thank you to President Biden for stepping forward and doing those pardons.
And Senator Merkley, I want to, well, really for both of you, but I want to start with you, Senator. Let's talk about the thing that we all love to talk about on Capitol Hill, the filibuster. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has called the Safe Banking Act, when it was in, I believe the NDAA called it nonsense. Do you believe that you have enough bipartisan support to get this bill passed?
I believe we will after you all talk to all the senators while you're here in D.C. I mean, here's the lay of the land. We will be very close, somewhere around 50 votes from the Democratic caucus. And it means we got to make sure we have at least 10 from across the aisle. We had 9 Republicans last time as co-sponsors on the bill. That puts us very close. I do encourage you all to thank Senator Daines for leading this, because not everyone that he works with on his side of the aisle is excited about this bill. And so positive reinforcement for his effort to step forward. He's been stepping forward in partnership since he and I teamed up in 2015. And so 8 years of effort, and I think he's working hard to make that happen, to make sure we'll have those 60 votes to close debate on a motion to proceed to the floor, and then close debate on the bill. We'll have to go through, I'm sure, a number of amendments before we can get 60 votes to close debate, but I think there's a real path to getting it done, yes.
And Senator Rosen, same for you in terms of bipartisan support.
I think that's right. Look at where we're at right now. So you can see that in the House, it's passed overwhelmingly, 5 or 6 times, I believe, in the House. And in the Senate, as we see election cycle after election cycle, we see more and more states passing laws and making sure that the cannabis is legal in their state. So it becomes an issue for these senators, these congresspeople, or congressmen, constituents. So they have to be responsive to their small businesses, to their economy, to their families, and to what's going on there. Senator Daines has worked very hard on that. I think that we do have good bipartisan support. It is, things are changing, moving in the right direction. Leader Schumer has agreed to put that on the floor sometime this year. I don't know if we have the timeline quite yet, but we are committed to doing that. We have Republican support. We're almost there, and I think if we send it to the House, it's already passed. We should have good luck.
And Senator Merkley, you mentioned President Biden's executive action. He also directed the Department of Health and Human Services to review the status of how cannabis is scheduled under the Controlled Substance Act. How has that executive, while this is not directly related to banking and loans, to what degree does that impact the work that you as a lawmaker on Capitol Hill is doing in terms of cannabis reform and working with your colleagues on the other side of the aisle?
Well, I think it's very useful. But the information that he brings forward out of that may help give momentum to a bill that Senator Schumer, Senator Wyden, and Senator Booker have been working very hard on. And it combines the descheduling also with 280E. And 280E is an outrageous tax provision that means so many businesses cannot deduct their expenses. And you pay taxes on your total revenue, not your net revenue, which is crazy. So I think those two things may well be linked together. And what the president's doing, we'll see what he comes out with, his team comes out with, may help give momentum to that effort.
Yeah, well, I agree with Senator Merkley. We have to move forward on all of that. And I think that if the president does move forward on trying to move marijuana off Schedule 1, that's going to allow for a lot of things to change, because right now veterans may not be able to access their benefits if they work in the cannabis industry. There's a lot of other things, universities doing research. There's all kinds of other things that we can open up the cannabis industry to if it is removed federally from Schedule 1. So we'll continue to look forward to see what the president says and what we can do in the meantime as we can keep working on this.
And final question, public opinion on decriminalization, legalization. Majority of Americans are starting to support more and more as the years go on. How do you believe you as a lawmaker can help inform the public to kind of move the needle?
Well, I think, and I can speak to what's been happening in Nevada since 2016. I think the more and more states that legalize marijuana, that they see people working in the industry, they see what's going on, they see how it's contributing to their economy and to so many other things, I think that changes public opinion. And so when you change public opinion, it makes it easier for us as lawmakers to work together with all the stakeholders to make our laws reflect the changes in our society. And so I do think that as more and more states do legalize cannabis, that we have the opportunity to have these conversations in different ways with people than we've been able to have before and move the ball forward.
So we're, depending on how you measure it, we're talking now about a $25 billion economy in cannabis. We're talking 430,000 people being employed full-time, more part-time. It's a big part of our economy, growing quickly. We have 37 states that have medicinal cannabis. And in terms of how that translates here, that's 74 senators that should be the top 74 in getting those 60 votes that we need to close debate and get the bill to the floor and then get the debate finished and have a final vote. So focus on those 74 because all of them see the problem and they're home. In some ways, I'd almost reverse it. I feel like it's been more the people educating the legislators than the legislators educating the people. I think the people have been far ahead, so power to the people. What happens is legislators go, well, this is new territory, I'm kind of nervous about this, and our state's kind of acted, but I don't know. You know, it's that reticence to, but now they can look and see that no senator in a single race in America has had this be a negative. It's been a positive in race after race after race, and that's the message to take home to those 74 from states that have medicinal cannabis, those 42 that come from states that have recreational cannabis, that this is totally safe territory. So listen to the people of your state, get on board, and let's get this bill done.
All right, I think we're out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Merkley and Senator Rosen.